what it's going to be called. They have secured enough funding from BLH in the tune of $2 million to make the first year free. I've met with one philanthropic person that a lot of the donors that are donating currently or were donating to Exeter Hospital will now be donating to this service because they see the need and the it's been called a public health crisis, which it could be. I've been in constant contact with Chief Knutson from Plastow and Janet Stevens from the Governor and Counsel's office, who has been working very closely with us. So just last week and the week before, Plastow held a public hearing, and that's what was all over Facebook and the articles and WMUR for his select board to officially agree to the terms that Plastow will now host the regional paramedic service. So we have a meeting tomorrow in Kingston with this group and with Janet Stevens and the Attorney General's office, who's also been instrumental in securing that $2 million from BLH to kind of finalize things. You got my invitation from the Seacoast Chiefs group that will be meeting in Exeter on the 16th, is it? So I did look it up last night. I thought that if the board was invited to a meeting that all 5 of you could attend without posting it, but I believe that's false. I think if you're in the same room at the same time, I think you have to post it. It may be worth posting. It's not a public meeting.
No, but we could put a legal notice downstairs saying that the board
It may be worth, I think it is worth all of you
such.
attending, just to get the same information that East Kingston's getting, all the other towns are getting, and we can ask the questions. So the way we're looking at Plastow right now, a lot of this is hinged on how many towns, obviously being free the first year, all the towns are going to be involved and participating. So right now there's 13 towns that Exeter ALS services. And then there's at least one other town that's interested on coming on board, so that's 14. So the schedule, the payment schedule is really based off what we get for donations year to year and how many towns are involved. So they have a budget, and the way that the Plastow chief broke it down for us was the first year would be free to, narrow all the services and be able to, really hone in on what we need and what we don't need. And the second year, he's looking at a 20% obligation from each town. So instead of making it $100,000 year two, it'll be $20,000, and then the other 80% will be made up from donations and grants and whatever we can receive. Third year would be up to 40%, 60% the fourth year, 80% the fifth year, and then sixth and on subsequently would be 100% by town. Obviously, if those donations continue, then that will come down as necessary. Kingston required ALS transports 81 times in 2023. 81. So each call that Exeter ALS transports with right now currently, they charge us $85. So in 2023, we paid $6,885 for ALS transports. We also, the billing range goes from BLS, which is basic life support non-emergency, to specialized care, which is the top tier. But it goes basic life support non-emergency, BLS emergency, ALS emergency 1, and ALS emergency 2. So any call that, if ALS is not on, we currently, for a BLS emergency call, is $1,095.13 is what we currently charge the person requiring the transport. An ALS emergency call 1 is $1,820.18. So we're charging more for the calls that our ALS is on. So many reasons we went with Plastow. We can, as a group, he's willing to take our input, where if it was a private group, it would be for profit and we wouldn't have any input. We can scale the service, whether it goes up if more towns are involved and the calls go up, or we can scale it down to make it cheaper and more affordable and more economical for the towns. Bless you. I don't want to take away from the only way to ensure that the termination of this sort of service doesn't happen again or doesn't affect Kingston or any other town is to have ALS providers in the town of Kingston. So that's why I have one current full-timer that is nearing the end of his paramedic course, and by hopefully March, he will be a fully certified paramedic, full-time for the town. And then in March, I am going for the 2 additional paramedics, which will give us 3 full-time paramedics.
And that's enough for 24/7 coverage if we wanted to go it alone?
I would need 4 total. And even then, if somebody takes a vacation day or whatever, but it's a jump in the right direction. So obviously the meeting on the 16th will have more detail. I'll get more details tomorrow. I have a couple questions for the chief and the service that I would like clarified, so I will bring those back to you as well. But that's kind of where we stand right now.
Do you happen to know, and maybe it's too early for this, but should we in Kingston develop our own capability to do this, but not such that we could cover ourselves 100% and we'd still have to rely partly on this other service or some other service to fill in the gaps, would it be a prorated situation or a per call situation, or would we be under the same contractual obligation as any other town that participates, regardless of how much we used it?
So we haven't finalized that in the group yet. It has been talked about that, let's say year 2, Kingston buys in and we pay $40,000, and whenever we get a paramedic level call, that service comes and transports with us whenever we need. Say year 4, we choose not to because we say, you know what, we didn't use it that much. It's been talked about that instead of Kingston fulfilling that $40,000 contract, that if it's a per call basis, it's just been thrown around roughly that it would be like $3,000. So therefore, we would still get the billing from the ambulance, hopefully. So I guess technically it would probably cost the town of Kingston $500 to $1,000 per call, as long as we, received 100% of the billing rate.
So it's going to get more complicated because you have to work out the billing issues, for sure. For sure.
And the charges that we're currently being billed for the ALS service as it is now and as it has been, that gets billed presumably to the recipient?
Nope. So an intercept vehicle cannot bill the patient. So only the transporting ambulance service can bill the patient.
But they bill the town.
So right now we get billed by ALS.
Right.
And then we pay ALS.
Who pays you?
The patient. So
Yeah,
we
okay,
bill the
but-
patient and then
They
pay
bill the
ALS.
insurance company.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah,
Yep,
but
that's-
the intercept and Plaza would be the same thing, is that RSAs state that they cannot bill the patient because they're not the transporting service.
Right.
So therefore, we would have, and they're supposed to have a copy of an IMA, which is an intermunicipal agreement, basically a memorandum, MOU, thank you. So first draft, I know Plastow brought it to his lawyers the last couple of weeks, so we should have a copy of that tomorrow just to go over and finalize. So we would sign an MOU with Plastow, and then they would bill us, and then we would pay them.
When you started, you were talking about a couple of groups. Which one was the 5013C? Was it the one that's being formed? The Plastow
Nope, it was,
Regional-
so this is a municipal run system, so it's run through the town of Plastow.
Okay.
The 501c3 was the current paramedics from Exeter Hospital that run Exeter Hospital ALS. They had thought about, I guess, they didn't make any steps towards it.
Okay.
But they didn't do that.
Correct.
Right. So that's not an option.
Right, okay.
It could have been an option.
Right.
The problem is they weren't able to start the service for probably a year, once to try to secure funding, to get the 501c3 on the books, all that stuff. Plastow, the plan is right now that Plastow will take over the day after ALS shuts down.
And is it true that Plastow would be taking over all the equipment and capacity from Exeter Hospital that they're providing?
So Exeter Hospital we have a verbal agreement from Exeter Hospital that they will donate both ALS vehicles and all the equipment associated.
That's great. That's a good step right there.
Plus the cash, the operating cash for that first year.
Yes, the $2 million. So it's
Right.
1.7 roughly is the operating budget for the Plastow paramedic service. And then I believe they've agreed to, the other 300,000 would be for capital purchases like new vehicles. And this group, I guess, that we're working with in Plastow and the philanthropic people are interested in not just doing the paramedic intercept service, but bringing in like mass casualty training and mass casualty availability, meaning if, God forbid, there's a school shooting or a major, storm that happened, that we could also rely on this group to bring those resources in. They also want to look at, obviously, probably further down the road, but also like in-home healthcare to try to cut back on the amount of people that we have to transport, because they called us with difficulty breathing. So if you call us with difficulty breathing, we can't say, sir, you're not really having difficulty breathing, you're not going to bring you to the hospital. We have to bring you to the hospital. What regions are doing across the country is they will send us out to you, or send a paramedic out to you, call the medical control doctor and say, this patient's statting at 100% oxygen, we can give him a breathing treatment and then sign him off. There is some liability, obviously, with that, but done the correct way with a medical doctor on the line and, even like some sort of telehealth, that would definitely cut back on the need for ambulance calls.
That's what they do in a lot of remote areas. Quite honest, I've seen some of that stuff on PBS, actually. It's very interesting.
So I know, working with Ms. Stevens from the Governing Council's office, Exeter Hospital was on divert last weekend for a day. I texted Ms. Stevens on that Saturday, and we discussed it back and forth. She immediately called the Attorney General's office, because once the acquisition starts, then BLH actually has to, all the contracts are public, and the Attorney General is involved, and the Medical Board of Health is involved. So they need to give constant updates to the AG's office. So being on divert probably wasn't a good look for Exeter, but so there's a lot of issues happening around Exeter. So like I said in previous meetings, I myself am looking for the town of Kingston to possibly move away from Exeter as our resource hospital and move maybe to Parkland, who Plastow uses currently, and has nothing but good things to say about them. It's too bad, I guess, comparing Exeter Hospital to now to 10 or 15 years ago, but.
So it's my understanding that there's going to be 2 teams deployed, right? One in Brentwood and one in Plastow, is
Yes.
that right? Okay.
So they'll have, right now, Exeter Hospital ALS runs with 2 paramedics.
Okay.
They also have a third medic that's usually staffed inside the hospital, that if there's multiple calls for service, that they can split and kind of each take one. So the way it's proposed now is there'll be a single truck in Brentwood with 2 paramedics, and then a supervisor's vehicle in Plastow with 1 paramedic.
Okay, well, it should be an interesting meeting next week, never mind yours tomorrow.
And like I said, we have a meeting tomorrow at 9 a.m. in Kingston to get more information. So if anybody's unable to make the 16th or whatever, I can come back next Monday and give another update, but.
Well, let's wait.
Thanks, Graham.
Yeah, thank you. I'm hoping to be there on the 16th.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, Susan, are you going to post that so that
We
we,
should. I know.
so that we're covered?
Chuck is interested in going as well, and I'm not sure yet, but.
Okay.
We probably
Well, just
will.
in case.
We'll have a quorum.
We
for
probably
sure.
have a quorum.
Yeah, well, I'll bet 3 of us will be going. Okay, good. Thank
Thanks,
you very
Greg.
much.
Thanks, appreciated.
And thank Counselor Stevens. She sounds like she's doing a yeoman's job. Yeah, on a number of issues for the town of Kingston, I know.
Graham, before you leave, I think Stacy had a question.
I'm sorry, I didn't see your hand there, Stace,
She was behind Graham,
so I couldn't see.
right, that's why.
That's why you're a good vice chair.
None of this, you probably don't have any of this information, but obviously I'm worried about budgeting and how that is going to be impacted revenues, because, revenues from ambulance fund for residents, because that revenue of all the ambulance calls goes into the general fund. So I know it's very uncertain right now, but since our budget hearing is Saturday.
So the first year is going to be free, right? So no
Correct.
cost to the town until 2026.
Is there gonna be billing though?
He has assured us that the current billing stature will stay in place until 2026.
So, so they will be billing,
So they will bill us probably, if it's staying the same, it's going to be the
Staying the same.
$85.
okay,
So, and that, the $85, if I'm correct, Paula, the resident billing for ALS comes out of the general fund, out
correct,
of my budget, and
Yeah.
then non-resident ALS billing comes out of the ambulance fund. Yes.
okay,
So I did start, with the budget committee, I did start a line item with $1 in it, just to put a marker there for ALS services. Again, I don't want to be pessimistic, but the group knows my concerns that there is a minimum number, a threshold before the whole system will fail. Meaning, if the budget is $1.7 million and Plastow's not paying anything because they're not using it, if only 5 towns are involved, 5 municipal towns in southern New Hampshire cannot make up $1.7 million. So there are concerns, hence why I'm pushing for ALS to be available in Kingston. I think we're behind the times already, but for billing and budgeting, I'm hoping that next year will only be $20,000, only a relative term, but we in the group have talked about multi-year contracts, a number of different ways to skin the cat, per se. The problem is a multi-year contract needs to go before the voters. If the voters say no, then we can't use that service for that next year. We are in a good spot, I hope, because we have the ambulance fund, which I used to put one of my paramedics through school. We're using that to purchase an ambulance. It's used for a lot of things, but we also have that to kind of fall back on if need be. But I hope I'm hoping that the negative media relations that the current termination of this service has caused, we can use to our advantage and to boast for the two new paramedics in Kingston and funding this contract for years to come.
We might actually see regional fire service someday.
So I did tell, and the chief in Plastow did text me the other day and asked if he's been using the word regional enough for me. I did say the only way that I would vote for his service is if he put the word regional in it, and he did.
That's what, do you know why I refer that? Because, 4 years ago?
Yeah.
We tried to get together with area fire chiefs to develop a regional concept to conserve on funds and share services, and that went over like a lead balloon, and that's being polite.
I may still see that in my tenure, because
Yeah.
with this service, with other service,
This
with
is the beginning.
with just the fact that for me to buy a new fire engine is close to $1 million, towns can't afford that.
I mean, eventually, it's going to be,
It
we're pretty
is.
much there now.
We're there now, yeah.
Untenable for individual communities to have all the stuff.
All the
And that's
toys.
why this regional paramedic service makes sense, at least short-term, 5, 10, 15 years, because a lot of these towns, Newton, East Kingston, Kensington, Southampton, those 4 towns right there don't have any full-time firefighters. They have per diems that cover the station sometimes, but no full-timers. Danville doesn't have any full-time firefighters.
It's the wave of the future.
Apparently, I was beyond my years, so we'll just,
I mean, and the good thing is, there are RSAs that allow you to do all this stuff.
Yes.
It just needs agreement and willingness to do it.
the willingness is the tough part.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Are they gonna talk about budgeting and how to do that on the meeting on the 16th?
So I think I think we're gonna make suggestions. Obviously, it's up to each individual town on how they wanna do it.
Yeah.
But like I said, I think Kingston, and that's really all I'm worried about in the big scheme of things, but Kingston's in a good spot with that ambulance fund. Some of these towns that, so there's 6 towns that have a private ambulance service that is going away in March. They have Trinity, was bought out by a different company, but we'll call it Trinity. So some of these towns don't have any billing set up. So we've been doing it for years, so that is better for Kingston, and I'm trying to work with these towns to, I guess, just give my opinion on the best way billing would work. Like, you know, you should really capture, I think it would be a tough sell for me to pull the resident billing from the general fund and make it into the ambulance fund. I think that would be a tough sell, because a lot of people think that, I guess their opinion is that their taxes pay for the ambulance.
That, Chief, today we had an ambulance call, and you would give a bill.
Yep.
That money, I'm sorry, it goes to the general fund?
So if you're a resident of the town of Kingston, we bill you, you pay, or your insurance company pays your bill, you pay your bill, whatever, that goes to the general fund. If you're a non-resident, like we have a car accident on 125, all non-resident billing goes into our ambulance fund. And then the ALS bills come from the corresponding funds.
Roughly what were those numbers last year? Roughly, between the two of them? Any ballpark? Just curious.
Typically, it's like 100,000 into the non-resident billing and 200,000 into the resident billing.
Because I would see, because you said like 5 years or something, we'd be responsible for 100%, which 14 towns are getting involved, it's like $122,000 for that service. That's why I was just curious.
So and for the billing rates, I look at our billing rates at least 3 times a year and typically adjust them. I mean, nothing's getting cheaper, right? Lumber, taxes,
right.
house costs, everything goes up. So I don't spike the bills, and luckily most bills are covered by insurance. Medicare, like for most of the patients at All-American, it's kind of a catch-22. So they guarantee like 60% of the bill. That's all they're gonna pay is 60%, but they guarantee it every time. So it's guaranteed money. So it's not great because we don't get 100%, but it's great that we get 100% of the bill.
Guaranteed.
So,
Yeah.
100% of 60%.
correct. All the time, some of the time. So yeah, it's kind of convoluted. We've always used ComStar. I've thought about looking at other billing services, but we've never had a problem with ComStar, so I'm of the theory of if it's not broke, don't fix it. So the rates they charge is comparable to other companies, so.
I have one more question.
Okay.
Just curious, Graham, you said that one of the ALS vehicles is going to be deployed to Brentwood. Did Kingston have the option to be that location?
So when the chief of Plastow the very first meeting that we had with Seacoast chiefs about this whole termination, he called me after and said, hey, would Kingston accept the vehicle? And I said, we absolutely would. I said, but I think Epping would be the best spot because you have 101 east and west, and you have 125 north and south. So I believe he talked to Epping, they don't have the room, so Brentwood was the next logical choice. We have talked to him about the possibility of not keeping it in Plastow, because it was actually brought up 2 meetings ago that if Plastow's not buying into the system and they're not utilizing the system, but I think there is a town maybe next to Plastow that is interested. But at tomorrow's meeting, I may be bringing up, like, hey, maybe putting that supervisor vehicle in Kingston would be a better option, where it's close to the main service area. And you'll see on the PowerPoint on the 16th, the main service area is like northwest of Kingston. So Deerfield, Candia, Nottingham, Northwood, it goes all the way to Stratham. Right now it goes as far south as us, and as far north as, well, Epping on 125. So, you know, and Chris is very open to adjusting those. If Brentwood isn't the best spot and maybe Candia is, then, you know, 6 months in or a year in, then we can kind of look at those response times and numbers and figure that out.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Chief. Any other public comment at this time? Okay, next item on the agenda is the wage matrix findings, the presentation that we couldn't get up last week. Stacy?
I'm gonna kill this bank of lights.
Sure. You're gonna project it up there, I'm assuming yes, no? No, yeah. Really?
Technology. Okay, do you want me to wait for her to come back? Okay. All right, so this is wage matrix summary. We did discuss this last week. I put together a quick presentation. I think you've all been sent the data. Yeah, so the file that we created is too big to go through email. I work with Black 5, so I've created a share drive that you'll all have the link to see all of the town reports, the generated data, the whole thing. It's a... What we got is a zip file. Yeah. So the other, like, I tried sending you a bunch of emails, and then I tried breaking it down, but then it gets rid of the macro, and so you're going to get you'll have access to that. I set it up today, but I don't know if it went through yet. But so there's a shared drive to do that. So I want to review the study parameters. We collect wage data from the surrounding towns, determining use for demographics, population, and per capita income. The exception is the highway department, where it is more road miles and departmental responsibilities. So that explanation is, do we have a water department? Is there a wastewater department? Is there a landfill? Is there, those are kind of how we assess the highway department. So it's a little different. We talked about that last week. And then we have all that information. Any questions? Study parameters? For the salary range. So as we talked about it last week, if we take the two titles, the two top titles, which are Director of Public Works and Road Agent, that starting range is 95 to 98,000.
But the broad range would be wider than that.
For the highway department?
You said the start. There's the initial hiring range, but then
Yeah.
the full range is probably broader than that.
Correct.
Okay.
So, so that initial range from the first to second step is 95 to 98, and so there's 7 steps. Let me show you this example. So this is actually the place. I just want to show you the example. So there are 7 steps in the range, and then there's each step increase is kind of divided, and then the range from that step is about 22. So from step 1 to step 7, and then for police chief, deputy chief, police lieutenant, all the way, there's ranges, and those are all kind of within that realm of how it was calculated.
Why is there nothing in step 1?
Sorry, when I cut and paste, it shifted the step 1 through step 7, so step 1 is actually
Under step 2?
Yeah,
Okay.
so I just noticed that when I put that up. Yeah. So it should say range and then total range. So there is one of this for every single, well, not just for all of our positions, but for any of the positions that we came across in the study, if we had enough data for it.
What was the second to the last column? The 3,000, what is that number?
That's a differential. It's the differential between the step 6 and step 7, step 5 and 6. Those are the differential between the steps.
Between each consecutive step.
Correct.
And the range is from step 1 to step 7.
Correct. All right. So I thought about this slide a lot, and I decided to talk about the limitations because I think that is important for everyone to understand where these limitations are and how we kind of stumbled with a lot of the limitations when we were building out the wage matrix. And I think this is where the committee struggled the most with, because as we were putting all of this together, this is where we kind of went through this. So we need to have a process that ensures employees are evaluated and have growth potential. So even as we were getting through this year and police and fire were looking at their wage matrix, they were concerned about people at the top of the range not having another step to go if they were already there. And how I looked at it is, well, if they're at the top of the range, they should either be going up to another position or being promoted, or they're at the top of their range, which is a hard thing to have that discussion, but we want to make sure that there's a process in place that employees are evaluated and they have growth potential, or there's not that potential. I think we talked about this last week, that we have lots of people in different departments that have taken on additional roles and responsibilities, and they've done it. We've encouraged them to do it. We've given them increase in salary, we have never aligned their responsibilities and their titles. And when we did a lot of data collection for individuals, for different departments, and we came across several of these employees who are doing more than their little box says they're doing. But for us to be able to evaluate that job, it shouldn't be the wage matrix. It needs to really be the select board that puts this, or their manager saying, okay, I'm going to use Tammy as an example. She's the town clerk and the tax collector. There's several different towns that have both, and she does both, but how do you put that together? Do we pay her for both positions? Or or is there some, and there's a lot of towns that have hybrid, but this is what we kind of saw and evaluated, and obviously, you know, there's different size towns, but we tried to stay within that range. And so that's one of the things that is a limitation that we've done to ourselves, I think.
So is the result of that people at the high end or over their range, right? Because you're trying to compare apples to apples.
Yep.
But we don't have apples to apples. So because this person is doing 8 things that aren't in their job description, but they're still titled this, we're paying them for the job that they're doing. But when you're comparing it to 12 other towns, they're overpaid when you're going purely by
Correct.
job titles.
When you are going purely by job titles,
Yeah.
you have some employees, if you go to put them into the matrix, are either right at the top or outside
Yep.
of that, on the high end, on that matrix. And it is a limitation. I think it's important that we understand that we've created this.
Right.
So, while we were going through this data, we like to use, there are certain job titles that we kind of use in general. And one of them is admin, and we use admin across multiple departments, and they all have different roles and responsibilities. And some of them have even additional duties to that they are performing.
Which is not unusual in any organization,
Correct.
private or public.
But usually, in organizations that I've worked in, you've had an admin 1, an admin 2, and an admin 3, and you've been able to see the growth and the additional roles and responsibilities, and you've differentiated them.
No, we don't.
So,
And so that's why I wanted to, I think that in order for the wage matrix to be successful and to be fair, some of those, so if you look, I said current employees need to be evaluated to align job title, responsibilities, and titles. I think we struggled in the wage matrix over and over again trying to put something together, because we would see we'd see where the numbers showed up, and we were like, oh, but that's their job title, and it just.
do you have a list of those? Because it sounds to me like we do need to either retitle.
I do. I
or...
mean, yes. I mean, I know which job titles, which job title. Well, no, because this is where it's confusing. Not the job titles. I know the employees that should be reevaluated.
Okay.
Because that's a different. So the job, we have all these different job titles. It's just that there are certain employees that should be, and it's a lot of some of our long-term employees
Sure.
that are wonderful and do whatever's asked for them.
So when you did this, you looked, because we went through the exercise of updating job descriptions.
Yep.
To include all of those extra things,
Yep.
right? So you looked at all of that.
Correct. And so we do have a knowledge of which employees are going above,
I mean, there's some employees that their additional duties are longer than their job,
Right,
like their
right.
basic job description. And so I think when you look at that, it's, are they really still doing that position? Or has it grown into something
something
else?
else, right.
And I just feel that that's not our responsibility
Yep.
to evaluate, that it needs to be, I can tell you who and where they are, but I think it needs to be evaluated differently. Department heads, yeah. And giving, you know, that. So right now, anyone at the top of the range doesn't have a step. They're only gonna receive COLA. So if you're at the bottom of the range, you could get a step, and how we've kind of created it is based on your review. Your department head can give you 1 step, 2 step, you know, it like how, if you come in new and you've been here a year and a half and you're doing way above expectations, we want to be able to reward that with, you know, additional increases based on the number of steps you go up. Any questions about this?
Go ahead.
All right. So I know we talked about this last week, and so this is wage matrix updates. I am working on a policy. I haven't finished it yet. I think hopefully by the end of January, I'll have it done. It will include wage matrix updates and how to use the wage matrix. So right now, it should be updated every 3 years, or evaluated to be updated 3 years. Demographics or responsibilities should be updated on an annual basis. Significant changes would require an update. So we have all the demographics in a spreadsheet, and all of like per capita income, population, school-age children, things like that. If something changed in Kingston that would change the demographics, I'll just say like a housing development or something like that, that brought in, I don't know, 200 new residents, that would be something that you may want to say, well, should we go back and look at certain departments or demographics and evaluate that? And I kept it short and sweet because I think it's important to talk about the limitations and how to update. And then there's tons of data. You'll have that link, and then you can always email me or ask questions.
The link is just for us, or is it for the public?
The link right now is on my personal shared drive, just to
Is it something that the link could be put onto the town's website?
Not right now.
What's the link to?
So the
The
data,
result?
it's on a shared drive. So in order for me, I was working with Block 5 last Friday to try to send the data, and it's a significant amount of data with locking up my town email.
Right.
So he said, you need to put it on the OneDrive, but since I'm not a town employee, I don't have access to the OneDrive. So I put it on my own OneDrive that I have access to using my personal email. And so you'll have access to that. And then what I'm hoping is Paulo can probably move it, save it, move it. Yeah,
Well, ideally, you don't want us or anybody else to be
No.
in my own
dealing
drive.
into your personal
I don't, but it was,
data bank.
I was trying to figure out other ways to do it, and I looked at SharePoint, and there's some, what is there? There's a bunch of things, but I have to set it up for my personal thing to put the data there to do that.
How's it gonna, I'm sorry, how's it gonna work this year as far as budgeting, as far as some of the departments that aren't sure what the wage matrix are versus putting in raises for their people? How's that all gonna work this year?
So for this year, fire and police have already put it in. Town hall is the only other department that will get any increases. The public works department, there's one or two that would get an increase, but they're the ones that are on the high end, so they would only get a COLA.
So it goes back to, is this information public for, what's the next step? Does this have to be approved by the board? Do we vote on it and say, yes, this is how we're doing it, or we're just saying this is it? I think this is something that has to be voted on.
You would have to vote on it.
Right.
I can't, I gotta be honest with you, those 5 slides, I
It's not
couldn't vote on,
No,
there's
I
not
don't-
enough information,
don't
I have no idea what I'm looking
information.
at.
So you're linking us to data that have the actual spreadsheets?
Well, it's a spreadsheet with macros in it, yeah. So it ends the town reports and the demographics and all of that.
Which is why it's such a big file. Is there any way we could get,
It almost seems like this is gonna be looked at next year.
I know, I mean, I don't,
We have to decide.
when are we supposed to look at it to be able to vote to say this is something that we think is good? Or we want to see this changed, or I think I'm really confused on what's next.
well, I don't know that we're gonna change anything, we either adopt it or not, but you can't, it's hard to adopt it when you haven't seen the steps. And that's what we need, the steps. We have the police, we have the fire. We have them, they're just part of a bigger volume of data. So any way we could pull those out?
So in order for me to pull them out, I have to undo the macros.
Oh, no.
So so if I undo, in order for me to just pull that out, I have to unlink the raw data.
Can you just take a screenshot of these slides? Because people are just gonna wanna look at, I mean, a lot of people are gonna wanna know how you got to that data, and when I say a lot of the employees, right?
Right.
So how are employees gonna be able to,
Well, that's 2 different issues. I think we have to figure out a way how to get your shared drive onto a drive that we can share and use without going into her data all the time.
Send it to us, we can share it onto a shared drive. Yeah, but once she sends it to me, I can put it onto.
A shared drive.
Right,
Yeah,
but by the same token, there's gonna be a volume of data. What I said, of those, of the town hall, the DPW, the police and fire, and then still give the board members access to the raw data.
well, is the raw data now public information? Because
It can be. It does, I mean, it is.
It's not proprietary because we
It's not
got,
proprietary, it's
well,
all
then-
from
then-
town
then-
reports.
Then that raw data at some point is gonna need to be made public, because people have had so many questions along the way of
Yeah.
how you derive this information, so some people are gonna wanna look at it. I mean,
Right.
I don't know that I would delve into it.
no, and I agree with you, I think you're absolutely correct. There will be people that would love to do this kind of stuff and will sink their teeth into it, so we do need to make it available. And for the board, we definitely need the screenshots of the matrix progression for each of the departments. And that would make it easier to adopt and then put forward the data so that people can take a look at, those that want to can do so.
Again, I agree with that 100%,
Okay.
but
What are we doing?
we have so many days for this year. I mean, to me, it seems like it's an unbelievable project, and it's absolutely great, and there's a lot of numbers we gotta look at, and there's a lot of numbers we gotta figure out, but we're there right now, and I don't think we're at a position where myself can make a decision for this year's budget. How can you do it? I mean, you're looking at this, there's way too much stuff
But
involved.
you said fire and police have already factored in their wage matrix into their budgets, so they've already adopted this?
They started using it last year.
They did it last year, this is the second year in a row.
It's like, all right, then what are we voting for? They've already adopted it. They're doing it themselves. They just,
Nope, the board approved it last year.
What board?
This board.
We looked through all the minutes and it was never, they were never approved. We didn't approve any wage matrices. It was discussed. But what about the town hall? If there hasn't been,
I think the only thing in the budget is the COLA for the town hall.
Correct.
Mr. Glenn?
What can I say? I mean, it's a lot of work that went into this. It would be nice if we were at a point that we were able to see everything so that we could maybe take a formal action to, as a board, adopt this and say, yeah, okay, from this point forward, we'll move with it. But we're not there, so, I mean, hopefully Stacy can be working with Paula to get this data to the point where we can go someplace, either through the website or wherever, to look at it. But we're also faced with two significant departments in town that are already using it. So we've got some parts of the town using it, other parts of the town not using it. Something that hasn't been formally adopted by the town, but yet a lot of work has gone into it, so I don't know where we are. I don't know what to say.
Yeah, I did think I thought we had adopted the police and fire last year, because it was the easiest one to do. And they needed it for hiring purposes as well. Okay, and if you
And I
look through
honestly
all the
don't-
minutes, I'm not,
I don't recall myself, but
okay. You went,
Yeah, so it was adopted, so if you go back and look at the budget committee, because of the issue with the fire department. So in the last few years of budgets, the police had been using it before we even started wage matrix. Their contracts had put that in place, their new contracts. And then we added money into the fire department's budget so that they could come up because their wages and they were having hiring issues.
so,
but nothing
So-
nothing like that was presented for police or fire, nothing like this was. So whether they were adopting it or they were using it, it was never presented saying step 1, step 2, steps, that wasn't done.
right, it might have been,
I think it was, but we may not have acted on it, is what you're saying. I thought we had those, the police and fire.
We did.
Might have been.
I can go back and look at what I presented, but those,
what year did you start looking at the wage matrix? I'm just kind of curious, because I was just last year, and I kind of was caught off guard when we did the review of the police department.
yeah.
And they already had it in place, because we sat there and looked at it. I looked at it, and I'm looking at it going, how did they come up with this? Because they
We
actually
didn't
showed us the step program.
So we started in August of '23. And our original analysis had the police right at the 50% mark because they had already implemented.
At the end of 23?
No, I think at like 22, they had started something.
Police was
Joel
the
had
first.
started something prior to us being formed. He already had data and examples.
Okay.
So then, what our original analysis, we picked 3 departments. We picked fire, police, and DPW. So last year, we worked on fire, police, not last year, it's 2025.
23?
Yeah, in 2023, we looked at fire, police, and DPW, and we had an analysis of where those departments sat with the towns. And we ran into, just based on job title, apples to not apples, is what we found out. And that when we did the original analysis, we ran into 15%, the fire department was in the 15th percentile, the police were in like right at the 50 percentile, and DPW was at the 95th percentile. That's what our analysis kind of showed. And so the police were already using something as part of how he was giving raises and putting in his contracts for new people. So we knew we needed to do something for fire, and we discussed putting in money in the budget to make sure that the fire department was being paid, because we were losing fire department people. And so so it wasn't necessarily that, we had that.
I said squeaky wheel gets the grease. So if the other departments were losing people too, they probably would have had a matrix by now. Oh, no, we don't have matrix.
Well, don't forget too, when the budget committee put in another $30,000 to the fire department, and that was because of the wage matrix, to get the fire department up to snuff with our competitors.
That was
Neighbors.
because of the data that we had originally.
Well, sure, so they were taking advantage of data that had been gathered up to that point. Even if it hadn't perhaps been officially adopted, whether it was or not, I don't know. But I mean, the data was there, so maybe they took advantage of it and used it to their,
Correct.
to their benefit.
Right, it was done through the budget committee. I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, because we did the joint meeting, and then the following meeting, someone on the budget committee recommended that we add money in, so that we have a ability to maintain the fire department.
There's a lot of signing going on.
I know, I don't know what to say, I'm not sure where we're gonna go next.
Oh, boy.
Well, while you're thinking about that, here's another question. On the last slide that you had, Stacy.
Oh, yeah.
The last item is, should be updated on an annual basis, significant changes, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Who would be doing that? Is that Human Resources? Is that a wage study committee? Is that, it's probably not the select board.
It should be like a human resources activity.
I mean,
ensuring.
that's kind of what I would see.
That is how I
mean,
would see
once this is all in place, that would be
Yeah.
where it would reside, but I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah, no, that's how I would see it. I mean, if human resources should be looking at responsibilities, if someone gets additional responsibilities or they're being promoted, that's all should go through that process. They would have data and job titles for additional people, for everyone, and going through for multiple people. So if somebody, I mean, there would be all this information. It's a great resource even if you're not promoting somebody but want to see job titles, demographics, all kinds of crazy information.
It basically is going to be an ongoing process, and we may need to bring in consulting assistants to help us continue it, or part-time help, a certain amount of dollars every year in the budget, because you're going to have to update the data from the other communities regularly. You're going to have to, and to review all the job descriptions. You did a lot this year, but there may be, and I believe there's still some tweaking to be done. So you're not going to be able to do everything in 1 year or in 3-month period of time. But we're going to maybe have to put together a strategic plan and how we're going to attack it to, number one, keep updating it and move forward. It's not going to be an easy task, and it's going to cost more money and resources than one person a part-time person in HR.
Well, and part of the
It goes
reason.
back to what you've said.
Part of the reason why I brought it up, first of all, I wanted to know where Stacy thought that, that last bullet, where it was going to reside as far as responsibilities, but I think it further supports the thought that, you know, we should be seriously considering separating HR from finance. And I mean, there's enough to do now in HR with what's going on, and adding this to it, to keep them together in one position, you dilute both of them, I think, and you don't do either justice. So, I mean, I've mentioned this before, but I think this is.
I know, and we're slowly creeping towards that, is what I see happening.
This just helps to, you know, put us further into that direction, I think.
Right.
But
Right.
and whether it's a contracted service, or, you know, whether it's you know, using additional staff, that I don't know. But
Well, using the additional staff is the tough one, but contracting services is a lot easier.
will be more expensive, actually.
That's exactly correct.
Yeah.
Well, the city of Manchester paid over $1 million to do a wage matrix, and they're still not done either.
I think the difficulty comes down to how jobs migrate over time. And when you're looking at these job titles, you don't know what job title in Brentwood is the same to the job title that you're comparing to. All you have is a name and a job title. And we have copies of the Rockingham one. We have, I think it was Barrington. We got copies of Barrington's whole study, and and it's piles and piles of data. And those groups don't go and look at the job titles, and don't put in and say, hey, I think this is where we're headed. They didn't. I mean, we kind of went a little above and beyond because we knew the data wasn't telling us the full story, because people on the committee knew the jobs. And so I think that's where we got into we went down the rabbit hole. You know, we did. I mean, it was hard not to, and you look at the data and you try to get job descriptions, and you try to go out and find that exact person, but that person doesn't exist. There's no one to compare it to.
And the fact that we had so many long-term employees, I think it was 4 years ago, the Benefits Committee had looked into longevity clause. And that may be the way to resolve those that cap out at some point. And if you have a longevity clause based on years of service, and for, you know, depending on the range, you can do like 3-4 categories, and that may be a way to still compensate with additional revenue without changing the matrix, if you will. And so we didn't address it much this time, but we did address it through the Benefits Committee, but did not.
Right. And
it was just because that would have been right in line with earned time. And earned time, they all link together in modernizing the way we compensate our employees.
And there's other, kind of how I look at it is, we looked at some job descriptions, and do we stipends people for doing additional work? And there's certain job descriptions that we kept using as an example, because we were like, okay, they're this and they're this, but they're two distinct positions. So how do you can't combine them. You can't say, oh yeah, we'll just add them together because they're doing both jobs. That's not really true, because they're not working 80 hours a week. But so we talked about stipends and that, and then I think over the last maybe 2 months, we were like, okay, we're going to give them all the data, which turned out to be
monumental.
Well, I had connected things, which I shouldn't have, but because I thought, oh, it would be really nice if you clicked on Brentwood, you clicked on that, and it would send you to the town website where the town report was, and doing that just.
So where does that leave us? What are we doing now?
Tammy, come on down. We need a microphone, hold on.
I'd like to make a suggestion, because supposedly Wednesday night, we're supposed to go before the budget committee.
Right.
And I haven't seen this yet. I think you have probably, 10 employees in the town hall, plus my staff. Someone take a look at it. Is there a big, significant difference in someone's salary? And then go to the budget committee, and then you guys can worry about adopting this next week or the week after, and who's gonna do it next year. But we need to look at what people are being paid now. I know, I wanna look at mine.
Yeah,
I think
everybody
we
jump
lost
right
me on
in.
What you want us to do? Just look at the town hall, can we do
What
that
you're
now?
saying, the town hall's the only one that's left, correct?
Well, and DPW, but yeah.
I thought she said she had the DPW.
DPW is maxed out as part of the problem.
There's like a couple of employees that would still follow the matrix down there, but most of them are capped out.
Correct.
Yeah. So can you bring up the town hall?
Can I bring up the town hall?
The data that you have? No?
I can
Yeah?
try, but it's,
You mean
So that's what you're asking us, Tammy.
You want
Can we
the
look at
data.
that and,
Well, I think someone should look at the town hall. If
Yeah.
we're the only group that's left, so what, like I said, there's a dozen of us? No.
not even?
Well, if you count the inspectors, the part-time,
yeah, they
Yeah.
don't- yeah.
yeah, there is. So,
But they're contract, right? No? Okay.
They're not on,
Inspectors?
it's if they get fees, it's the contractors, the inspectors are different.
okay.
They're not,
So then you
they get a
even
fee.
less. So,
for
is
each.
it,
Just,
So it's really assessing, admin, and your staff,
Impala and
And
Melissa and my staff?
right,
Pedro.
Pedro,
We gotta
yeah.
talk to him, but we gotta, I mean,
yeah.
yeah, but that was before the matrix. What's the matrix say about it? We haven't looked at the matrix on them. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. There's just not enough information that we have. And if we need to do the, I hate to say it, the raise for this year, I mean, I'm gonna be there Wednesday night. I mean, we gotta figure this out, because
Right.
if not, these people have to plug numbers in.
If there, so say there's a significant difference from the matrix from one of my staff. I want to know about that before I go Wednesday night. That's only fair. If the police and the DPW, they have their information, I want mine.
I don't blame you.
Can you forward that to her? I mean, I thought we talked about this last week. You're gonna give her that information.
You know what I'm thinking, let me tell you what I'm thinking. I'm thinking that if we know the employees, we know it's the town hall, and if you want to look at the DPW still, even though they're capped out, we could always put in a dollar amount in the budget to use for compensation according if needed, if and where needed. You know what I'm saying? If I need to put $20,000 in the executive line for raises for those that didn't get a clear decision on the wage, there's been time for it to meet the budget demands, we'd still have the funds to do it, and then it could be done correctly without just throwing money at them in 48 hours. I don't want to do that. But I do want to see the matrix and go with department heads and see what we should do. That's not to say we can't put a sum of money in the executive budget to deal with that. Does that make sense?
That's absolutely one solution, yeah.
It would give us the time to do it right and not over or undercompensate accordingly. It would give us the money in the budget for to ask the voters for. And Tammy, does that make sense to do that? I mean, I'm not saying we're not look at, we still need to look at it, but for 48 hours, I don't know what else to say.
Okay, so I am, does that include the town clerk, tax collector? Because my salary goes in the budget and voted on that line.
Yeah, and I guess I'd ask you didn't put a raise in for yourself? Because you did last year, right?
No, I did not. I haven't had a raise in 2 years.
I did not know that.
That is,
I did not know that. Then that would include the tax collector. We might need
Can I
30,000.
ask a question from a perspective of not knowing? Does that have to go to warrant because you're an elected official?
No,
no.
no.
That's why it's a separate line in the budget.
Okay.
I'm curious, I agree with what you're saying 100%, but I just want to make sure that if you're going to have 12 employees, let's just make up a number, right? And you did, again, $2,000 an employee is $24,000. We don't know what that number's going to be, so it might have to be more than that.
Right, I agree.
Yeah, to cover that, but I agree, something's got to go in there to figure this out, and,
Right. It'd probably be more like 35 or 40,000.
well, like I said, if we can get those numbers from that matrix on our studies in East area towns, we can look at those numbers and have a more educated, I don't want to say guess, more educated number to put on that line item.
Okay.
But we need to see those numbers, what she's got for me, the wage matrix.
Paul, if you give me, you have that data? No, you don't. I know, and you're not going to be around for a couple of days.
Not by choice, believe me.
I know, no, there's an illness in the family.
I'm
so-
sorry.
Family emergency.
Any way you can share that with Paula?
I can try. It's from my personal email, so you're gonna have to look in your junk.
Yeah, go ahead, Adam.
Can she just, Paula, can you just put all this on a flash drive and I can upload it to have a Google Drive?
I don't think we have a Google Drive.
But can you put it on a flash drive and have Paul open it up, at least you can print out a couple pages?
I can try. Because the, yeah,
All right, let's start with that and see if we can work that out. And then we see if we can find those few pages that we need to do an educated guesstimate on what we need to put in there for funds. And then we follow up and actually plug the names in the numbers with the department head. Does that make sense? Yes? I don't see you.
Going in the right direction, I guess. We totally are.
Just, I think there's more to it than just,
The immediacy is the budget,
yes.
48 hours.
I understand
So
that.
we have to come up with a reasonable number. Doesn't have to be the exact amount, doesn't mean we spend it all, because we can return what we don't use. But we need to look at the sheets to see where those individuals fall. We need to look at how they compare.
I understand that.
Okay.
But I think it's also, yes, we need to get a ballpark figure, but with then evaluating the raises, it's not just a matter of if this person is outside, they automatically, I mean, it should be performance-based too, right? There's a lot of factors, it's not just they're not within the median, so then we have to bump them up
so I just,
25%.
so
Performance
it's a
is-
little more complicated than just that, because don't forget that the matrix was adjusted for the COLA. So there's already money in everyone's budgets for the COLA. So
Right.
if, let's just say one person may not, their step may be covered in their COLA. So even with the step, there's COLA in the budget. And so that's the whole reason that we decided to start this project, was to try to, because there was paper performance, employee, manager, departmental manager raises, and COLA going to the budget each year. And so now this the wage matrix kind of eliminates those three and puts them into a wage matrix, which was updated with the most recent COLA for 2025.
By the same token, the wage matrix has a step for that individual to move to.
Yeah.
the evaluations aren't done till February and March. So whether that employee gets that raise or not has not yet been determined. The money's in their budgets. Am I correct in that? Yes, I am correct in that. So what's the difference between looking at 12 people and coming up with a guesstimate amount? They still have to be evaluated. There's no, other than the COLA, there's no guarantee they get any more than the COLA at this point in time. So I still think what I'm proposing will work enough to get the money in the budget. So.
And if you look at the current wage matrix, then all those 12 employees would not get COLA, but only a step. That's what I'm stating, because the wage matrix already takes into account
For COLA, that's correct. Well,
We're not gonna solve this tonight,
No, we're
so
not.
we need to get those numbers
You could
to these guys here.
link Paula, and I'll
Yeah.
get together with Paula, and then with Tammy, and maybe not Tom, but maybe I'll reach out to you, Laurie, and we'll go from there. But
Then we can present it to the budget committee on Wednesday night.
yeah, that we can do, and then after that, we need to
Yeah, so
get
that's
together.
on the second half of the agenda at the end of the meeting.
Okay, so that's for Wednesday night, we need to do that. We need to come up with a number, okay? All right. Thank you so much.
A lot of work.
And we're not done. Thank you very much, Stacy. Okay. Yeah, well, all right, let's move on here. Committee reports. Laurie? Any liaison reports?
The few of us who were working on the website, we met on Friday. We made some great progress. I do want to say thank you to Tammy and Caitlin for the amazing job that Caitlin is really doing. So thank you for allowing her that extra time. Susan's also been working it, and Robin Carter has just really great input. So we have a meeting in 2 weeks. We think we'll have an 80% solution, enough to be able to give the company the go-ahead to launch us live by the end of January. So that's good. But we also talked about, we want to think about possibly hiring somebody to maintain the website, because it's a lot of work.
I wondered if it could expand that job to include website.
Which job?
We were advertising for our helper for Adam. I don't know if we can somehow incorporate, make it a little bigger of a job and have someone also.
It really would
Here we go mixing metaphors again. No, I am not in favor of that at all.
Okay.
No.
It's the time we'll be doing most of the work to get it launched, but to maintain it, like anything,
Yeah.
it takes time.
It's
and
trickier
it's
than
an
it-
extra job for people that, but it's, an hour here, an hour there is really important to make sure the data is relevant. And it's a heavy lift for.
It's a lot harder than we thought it would be.
And you
It's
know
not
what?
like an upgrade, it's like a brand-new website that we're all trying to learn in our
And it
spare
has to
time.
be a town employee, and maybe we have to pay a stipend for that to someone else, because we're responsible for what goes on there. We can't hire a high school kid or part-timer.
Well, no.
And I think now that we've seen the disaster of combining jobs, let's not, we don't even have anyone applying for the part-time or
Well,
the
I know,
AB.
I know.
So, I don't know. That's just my opinion. You guys can decide, or vote me, whatever, I don't know, but.
Yeah, it's something to think about. We have some of the pages that need a lot of work. So we're gonna have to just make some decisions at the next meeting and decide how to do that. But we'll be ready to launch by the end of January. I think everybody's gonna be really happy with the new website. It's gonna be easy to use, it's clean.
We need to think about that, because it's not just the website. We've got all the Facebook pages. We have 5 Facebook pages when you think about it. Police, fire, community, you know you're from Kingston, where
Yeah,
the
but
town.
those are not official. We have one official Facebook page, that's it. All the rest are community, you know.
You put that in the notes for me, so that 5 years from now, when we're arguing about this,
Yeah.
I'm gonna say, we needed to get someone on board now.
Well, it's,
Okay, and I'm not sure, you lost me there. What
Well, we'll
what
launch
about
the end of
Facebook?
January, and we'll see how long before we screw it up, because we haven't got enough time to maintain it.
that's why we were
That's
saying.
what-
it's
That's
where I'm
why
going.
we were saying
In
that
some
we
form,
need
we
somebody
need support.
dedicated to
Yeah.
maintain it, Ellie.
And I don't disagree with
Okay.
that, that's not what I'm saying to you, you're not listening. I'm saying I don't wanna try and combine an AV part-time and something else part-time.
Well, you confused it with throwing Facebook in there, I just was a little lost there.
Because that's part of your social media, I mean, in my
Right,
opinion.
it is,
So there's an adjunct that goes there. I
Okay.
just think there's another link.
right, yes.
So I didn't mean to confuse.
It'll be ready to go, it'll be set up, it's gonna be an ongoing process to make sure we have everything updated. But it'll be good to have it done, because right now we're maintaining 2 sites.
And one we can't navigate well.
Right.
So there you go. Okay, thank you, Laurie. Any questions or anything else?
The Solid Waste and Recycling Committee meets on Thursday. Everybody's welcome to attend. We're gonna be mostly doing a brainstorming for the new collection center, right? Like, all the things that we think we need, all of, you know, just grandiose plans. So that'll be a working meeting on Thursday. That will give us a blueprint for our business case and our project plan, and then also kind of like little subcommittees to take little tasks and things, so, yep.
Someone came in today that's interested in joining. I told him to send me an email and I'll share it.
What time Thursday?
What time is our meeting?
7 o'clock.
6:30.
Oh, okay.
6:30 at,
DPW?
DPW.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Glenn?
Well, you'll be happy to know that I don't think I have anything to share. Not at this moment.
Okay, well, at this moment, I don't have anything either, because planning board's not till tomorrow night, and we have that as an item next on the agenda anyways. And Mr. Bakey?
The only thing I have is the police department. I think his numbers are still going a little bit back and forth. Stacy might have some information on what he's requesting for the overtime budget.
Okay,
So he was trying to put a final number on that, I think, for Wednesday night.
okay.
And Pedro is just telling me that they are very busy down there. Everything's working very well. And a couple projects that he talked about with us before are pretty much well underway.
Okay.
So good to go.
Okay, very good. Let's get on to unfinished business. We have the salary range for highway. We have that, you gave that to us last week and earlier tonight as well. But it's a bigger range than just, it is a bigger range.
Right. I mean, what Stacy outlined for us in the presentation was what she anticipated the hiring range to be. But
Correct.
the range for the position is actually broader than that.
That's correct.
Yeah. And just for the record, I realize the reason we're doing it this way, I still think it's too high, but
Okay. Duly noted.
it is what it is.
Yeah. Thank you. The seminary project, we had plans, I don't know if you had gone online and taken a look at the presentation on YouTube. The planning board has asked if you wanted to comment on it, and Glenn was did send some comments that were pretty good. Things for them to check, not, and is supportive of the plan. Did you have a chance to look at HDC or any comments you'd like us to make on the
That is
proposed?
not my area of expertise, and so I read over Glenn's comments, so I wouldn't even know to ask these things, so I think it's great that we have his expertise and yours to be able to do that, so.
Okay, great.
I concur with Laura's comments.
Did you see any of it through HDC, the proposal?
That particular meeting, Glenn actually sat in
Oh,
for
okay.
me, so.
Right, I attended that in, as Lori's backup on that. As the alternate, actually, yes. So I was voting at that night. And the HDC did approve what they could, I mean, within their jurisdiction of that plan. And it was actually one of my notes here to add to the to our comments for planning board is that I didn't see it on the plan set, but I think that the HDC's approval and their certificate of approval.
You had it on your notes in your.
Yeah, right, right. I think I might have missed it on the plans, but if it's not on the plans, I think it should be there, because on a plan set, typically any permits or approvals need to be listed, and maybe when the final plans come out, they will be, but I just want to make sure that, I mean, the HDC was a very important step for us, getting through that, so I want to make sure that that's noted on the plans.
Peter, did you want to add anything? Okay, I'm just going to write that the select board supports the project as presented. Please see comments attached from Mr. Copeland. How's that sound? Okay, because that would be the appropriate way to get that through. Excellent. The RFQ for the solid waste, the only revision was on the timeline, because we will have to go to warrant for approval of the contract in 26, March of 26. I'm curious, one of the things I want to look into is what other towns have done. I'm assuming this is normal procedure for multi-year contracts, but I would, at this point, like your approval to send it on to the attorney to start the process.
I make a motion to send the draft RFQ to town council for review.
Second?
Okay, further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Excellent. Because we do need to get moving and all that good stuff. The warrant articles you have for your review. Again, we don't vote on it till January 18th when we meet with the budget committee at the hearing. Did you have any comments or questions? Okay, no.
I wanted to point out that I did get a last-minute addition today. I sent in an email, probably you didn't get it, but I did type it in from Revision Energy for their solar project.
And what do they want to do?
They're ready to put, they would like you to have the warrant article on there to authorize you to sign a lease once it comes up, so they don't have to wait another year. It doesn't obligate you, it just authorizes you. So,
I'm not signing any, I'm not agreed to sign any lease, I'll tell you that right now.
no, you don't, it's just putting it on the warrant that you'd be authorized to.
Okay, so do we have a contract that we should look at before this even happens?
They're not ready, they're still working with Unitil.
Then we shouldn't even be putting this on the warrant. Okay, Rick, come on down.
What happened is Unitil wanted to do an interconnection restudy. The restudy will be done in February. And they're pretty optimistic that they're going to be able to plug in, and that's what the whole issue is going to be. All this does is authorize you guys to negotiate a contract with them. So in other words, if you don't like the price, you don't sign any contract. All this is gives the select board the authorization to enter into a contract with them if you like it. And if you can't come up with an agreed price, you won't like it, and you won't do it, and it won't happen. It's as simple as that. So this gives you, the problem is it makes them wait an additional year, and to try to get investors lined up to do these types of things time is money, as you know, and so,
I
and all
can-
this does is authorize. It doesn't bind the town to do anything more than that. It just authorizes you guys to negotiate it.
How can we agree to even put it on the warrant when we haven't even seen what it is we might be signing? I'm not trying to be contrarian, but all these big contracts are scaring the bejesus out of me. I don't know if I'm gonna approve something that's in the best interest of the town. We have to run it by legal, never mind our own internal process.
And you won't approve the contract if you don't like it. I mean, this is an opportunity to finally get some out of the landfill. And if they're suggesting a low price of $35,000 a year just to have something on the warrant article. But if we decide, let's say it's 50,000, whatever it is, that would make more sense, whatever it might be. But this you have to have some authority from the townspeople to enter into a contract. I mean, this is not signing a contract, it's not making a contract, it's not looking at a contract, it's just giving you guys the authority which you would need to enter into some kind of a contract that you guys would negotiate with the help of town council or whoever to make sure it's good for the town. But this does nothing, it doesn't require you to actually, they've given you proposed wording for it. It does nothing to say the town will enter into, they have to sign anything. It doesn't have to do a thing. You can walk away from it at any time, Ellie. So just.
You willing to guarantee that?
I would on this one. This is pretty clear. This to
Well,
me is
that
not.
says something.
This is not like the other thing where Unitil may lower prices and we have to see how that comes along. This is a situation where it just gives you guys the opportunity to enter in a contract if you want to. If you guys say for any reason, this is not a good thing for Kingston, you can back away from it but right now you can't do that because you don't have the authority.
Correct.
So it's just an authorization. I don't see how the town could possibly get hurt on it.
Well, should we have done this for solid waste contract?
Say again?
Should we?
No, because,
Why?
well, the solid waste is a service we're paying for. This is authorizing leasing of that property to provide revenue to the town.
Okay, I see the difference.
So there's a difference. But I do have
You do have to have authorization, you do have to have authorization from the townspeople to do that, more than likely.
I hate to say what I'm going to say, because,
You're gonna say it, I'm gonna say what?
well, you're probably going to love this, but
Okay.
however, it goes against what I was hoping that we would end up doing. It's a question. Through this whole process of the siting of the solar at the landfill, it was always my understanding that when we were ready to do a contract, that contract would be put onto the warrant article for the voters to approve. That's what I thought was going to happen. Now, maybe I was misunderstood, so I need somebody to tell me if I'm wrong in that assumption.
Mark has agreed to come here next week on I think the 13th, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
If he could, and you guys can put it to him, have a discussion with him right then and there as to what you can and can't do, and what they can and can't do. So
I just got this today, so you could, if you want to wait, you can talk to him, or even just, I don't know if you even read the email. I know I just threw it.
I read
because
it quickly
didn't-
before
yeah.
coming to the meeting, so I was aware that this was
I didn't want to wait
on.
till next week to show it to you, but you don't have to make up your minds right now.
And I'd suggest you do that. You should wait till next week, because I want you to be clear on it, and I want you to feel comfortable.
And I do too. I mean, I'm not saying it's gonna be bad, but, and I kind of agree. I thought the next step would have to have a bigger audience than just the select board. But this is not the next step. This is the in-between step, is what you're saying.
Right, this is kind of interim, really.
So for argument's sake,
Yeah,
if we were to do this and put this to the voters, giving us authority to enter into an agreement, and we did come up with an agreement, would that agreement then be put to the voters at next year's town meeting?
That's up to you. If you don't have I don't want to say this, but if you don't think.
Really?
Careful, you're on camera.
If you don't think it's good enough, and you say, we don't dare without the town voting for it, you can do that, I suppose. I don't know why you couldn't, but it seems to me, you guys, the elected officials, if you think it's good for the town, and you're authorized to do it by the townspeople, the voters, then you should feel comfortable going forward to do
But we
this.
still could go to the voters if we so chose, because it's gotta go through council. And the two questions to ask, is it good for Kingston in particular? And is this, does this bind us in a way that's not good for us?
Right. I mean,
You
if
can't
we,
put in contract that you guys enter
I
into before
agree,
the
I
voters.
totally agree, and we've talked about a contract consultant. But the law says any multi-year contracts has to go before the voters.
Go ahead.
Couldn't we put a warrant in to give us the authority to enter into a multi-year contract and then have the voters say, you can't do that?
Stacy?
Yeah?
Yep.
Well, it already says in this sample, not to exceed 35 years. So,
Yeah, but
So there is an RSA that it states that you can only lease for a period of 1 year unless you go to the voters and request the voters to allow you to make leases on their behalf. So last year, when it first came up, it was a warrant article that kind of said, we can make all these leases. I can't remember what number it is, but it was changed because there was pushback. So it was only signed to allow you for that one contract for 4 years. But any leasing of town-owned land, if it's longer than a 1 year lease, is supposed to get authorization from the voters.
So the one question I have is, this is on the landfill, right?
On the landfill.
The landfill. So a couple questions I have about the landfill. Question number one would
Thank
be,
you, Stacy.
have we had any other towns or research on putting other solar panels on landfills? First of all, the stuff's biodegrading, so that landfill is actually shrinking, it's going down. Second of all, what's gonna protect that protective membrane that covers that landfill? How are these things gonna be secured to the ground without damaging that membrane?
Well, I don't want to get into the weeds here because you guys have other things to do tonight
No,
as well.
it's
But
important.
I would say to this, any landfills, they have to use ballasts. On top, they can't go into the landfill because of the fact that they might penetrate the membrane. So that's clear. I mean, and that's, DES is the one that has to sign off on that. It's almost like the town doesn't sign off, but the Department of Services has got to approve that for the ballast of it. And the other question you had was?
When the landfill's gonna settle, it's moving, it's constantly changing, things are decomposing and.
The DES deals with that.
I'm thinking of putting all these big structures all over it, how are they gonna last?
Yeah, and we don't know that it's gonna be worked. That's what they're finding out.
Yeah, and again, I think I would urge you to kick this off till next week, so you have Mark sitting here, or one of the representatives from Revision, so you can ask the pointed questions that you need to ask.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. You could postpone that, Susan, it'd be great.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rick.
thank you, Rick.
Okay. The zoning petition article, we don't have to vote on it tonight, but it went through council and it has been approved, the wording has been approved.
Right, the only thing that the select board has to do is determine that it's in the correct format to go to warrant, and council reviewed it and said that it was fine, so.
Okay, great. New business, we have special permit application for 2025 mosquitoes. Is this a continuation of a current contract, Susan?
yes, they still have an ongoing contract. They just have to do that permit every year for pesticides.
All right. Then public comment number 2. Okay, correspondence, land use change tax, map R25, lot 14. And that's about what, Susan? Assessment?
Something came out of current use, and they need to pay a tax, and that's the form.
Okay, so that's what we're signing to authorize them to charge them? assessment of land use change tax.
Right, once you sign, it goes to Tammy to
Okay.
tax them.
And we have a veterans credit application, that's all set.
Yep,
Okay, and we have a memo from the assessor.
that's just for you to take a look at.
Okay, and what about the contract from the assessor? Do we have a new contract?
I spoke to Steve from Whitney today, about 5 o'clock. He sent it to me, I gave it to Paula. It's before the DRA right now, it's not ready
Okay.
for you yet. But he
Okay.
did send it, and it is as.
And you gave it to Paul, and that's going through the channels from there to
Yes, and
DRA, and then we'll have it.
My question for you is whether you want it also to go to town council or not.
I haven't seen it, so I have no idea
Okay.
whether we need to. We might need to.
Well, it's a contract.
Yeah.
It's pretty lengthy.
I think we should, just as a matter of course.
So we're gonna have two reviews, we're gonna have all of, and DRA and town council after that. Perfect. So that's 3 sets of eyes. I'm good with that. You have a thing on assessing and permitting. I'm not sure we're gonna
That's
take.
just for your information. I just got, after the last meeting, I thought there's not a lot of clarity about all the different tasks that happen downstairs, so I thought I'd write down what I know. I gave it to Pedro today to have him look at the permitting end. I just thought it would help if we do get another person down there to divvy up the duties.
Well, yeah, and quite honestly, with Stacy also, we met, if you remember, with together to go over their job
Yep.
description, so let's not have 3 different documents floating around. But
I think this was as a result of our discussion last week, right?
Yeah, I just felt like I have a little bit of input on that situation.
Well,
I've done
right.
both of those jobs, and I know they've changed, so it's, I need some help with it, but.
Right, from our discussion in non-public, that's what this,
Okay.
we
Yeah,
had
I
requested
just think there needs to be some input of what those jobs look like, so.
Right.
Trying to help.
minutes, I have a motion to approve the minutes as printed, public and non-public.
Motion to approve minutes, public and non-public, from December 30.
Okay, and a second.
Is it,
I had provided Susan one
Oh, yes.
piece of feedback, did you already
I
incorporate it?
already
into
put it in there, and I did send it around to everybody so you know what was changed. It was just to clarify that the POET systems that are in the town buildings, until they're certified by water techs, we can't say that water is potable.
I brought it up as an email because it needs to be done in public session.
Right, so that's,
so then I'll amend my motion to to approve the minutes as amended.
Okay.
Second.
Just further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. We don't have any other non-public things, do we? No? Okay.
Well, I don't.
Anybody have anything? Okay, meeting's adjourned at 8:31. I was